Tromeri by Charles Beaumont. At the sound, Henry Ritchie's hand jerked. Most of the martini sloshed over his robe. He jumped up, swabbed furiously at the spots. God damn it! Hank! His wife slammed her book together. Well, what do you expect? That confounded buzzer is a perfectly natural, normal buzzer. You're just terribly upset, dear. No, Mr. Ritchie said. I am not just terribly upset, dear. For 7 years I've been listening to that banshee's wail every time someone wants in. Well, I'm through. Either it goes... All right, Mrs. Ritchie said. You don't have to make a production out of it. Well, what? Mr. Ritchie sighed ponderously, glared at his wife, set what was left of the martini down on the table, and went to the door. He slipped the chain. Be this the master of the halfway house? Mr. Ritchie opened the door. Max, what the devil are you doing up at this hour? A large man, well-built, in his 40s, walked in, smiling. I could ask you the same question, he said, flinging his hat and scarf in the direction of the chair. But I'm far too thoughtful. They went back into the living room. Mrs. Ritchie looked up, frowned. Oh, swell, she said. Dandy. All we need now is a bridge 4. Ruth's just terribly upset, Mr. Ritchie said. Well, the large man said, it's nice to see unanimity in this house for once, anyway. Hi, Ruth. He walked over to the bar and found the martini mix and drained the jar's contents into a glass. Then he drained the glass. Take it easy. Max Kaplan turned to face his hosts. He looked quite a bit older than usual. The grin wasn't boyish now. Dear folksies, he said, when I die, I don't want to see any full bottles around. Oh, ha, that's just so very deliriously funny, Mrs. Ritchie said. She was massaging her temples. I'm glad to see her ladyship amused. Kaplan followed Mr. Ritchie's gaze. Hickory-dickory-dock. The mice look up at the clock. Oh, shut up. Oops, sorry. The big man mixed up a new batch silently, then refilled the 3 glasses. He sat down. The clock's tick, a deep, sharp bass sound, got louder and louder in the room. Kaplan rested his head on the couch arm. Less than an hour, he said. Not even an hour. I knew it, Mrs. Ritchie stood up. I knew it the minute you walked in. We're not nervous enough. Oh, no. Now we've got to listen to the great city editor and his news behind the news. Very well. Kaplan rose shakily. He was drunk. It showed now. Well, if I'm not welcome here, then I shall go elsewhere to breathe my last. Never mind, Mrs. Ritchie said. Sit down. I've had a stomach full of this wake. If you two insist on sitting here until X hour like a couple of ghouls, well, that's your business. I'm going to bed, and to sleep. What a woman, Kaplan muttered, polishing off the martini. Nerves of chilled steel. Mrs. Ritchie looked at her husband for a moment. Then she said, Good night, dear, and started for the door. See you in the morning, Mr. Ritchie said. Get a good sleep. Then Max Kaplan giggled. Yeah, a real good sleep. Mrs. Ritchie left the room. The big man fumbled for a cigarette. He glanced at the clock. Hank, for Christ's sake. Henry Ritchie sighed and slumped into a chair. I tried, Max. Did you? Did you try? I mean, with everything? With everything. Might as well face it, the boy's going to burn right on schedule. Kaplan opened his mouth. Forget it. The governor isn't about to issue a commutation. With the public's blood up the way it is, He knows what it would mean to his vote. We were stupid even to try. Lousy vultures. Richie shrugged. They're hungry, Max. You forget, there hasn't been an execution in this state for over 2 years. They're hungry. So a poor dumb kid's gonna fry alive in order for them to get their kicks? Wait a second now, don't get carried away. This same poor dumb kid is the boy who killed George Sanderson in cold blood, and then raped his wife not too very long ago. If I recall, your word for him then was brutal murderer. That was the paper. This is you and me. Well, get that accusatory look off your face. Murder and rape, those are stiff reps to beat, pal. You did it with Beatty. You got him off, Kaplan reminded his friend. Luck. Public mood. Beatty was an old man, feeble. Look, Max, why don't you stop beating around the bush? Okay, Kaplan said slowly. They let me in this afternoon. I talked with him again. Richie nodded. And? Hank, I'm telling you, it gives me the creeps. I swear it does. What did he tell you? Kaplan puffed on his cigarette nervously, keeping his eyes on the clock. He was lying down when I went in, curled up tight, trying to sleep. Go on. When he heard me, he came to. Kaplan, he said, you've got to make them believe me. You've got to make them understand. His eyes got real big then, and, Hank, I'm scared. Of what? I don't know. Just him, maybe. I'm not sure. He's carrying the same line? Yeah, but worse this time. More intense somehow. Richie tried to keep the smile. He remembered all right. Much too well. The whole story was crazy. Normally enough to get the kid off with a life sentence in the criminally insane ward. But it was a little too crazy, so the psychiatrist wouldn't buy it. Can't get his words out of my mind, Kaplan was saying. His eyes were closed. Mister, tell them. If they kill me, you'll all die. This whole world of yours will die. Because, Richie remembered, you don't exist, any of you, except in my mind. Don't you see? I'm asleep and dreaming all of this. You, your wives, your children, it's all part of my dream. And when you kill me, then I'll wake up, and that will be the end of you. Well, Richie said, it's original. Kaplan shook his head. Come on, Max, snap out of it. You act like you've never listened to a lunatic before. People have been predicting the end of the world since the year 1. Sure, I know. You don't have to patronize me. It's just that, well, who is this particular lunatic anyway? We don't know any more about him than the day he was caught. Even the name we had to make up. Who is he? Where'd he come from? What's his home? My home? A world of eternities. An eternity of worlds. I must destroy, hurt, kill before I wake, always. And then, once more I must sleep. Always. Always. Look, there's 100 vagrants in every city, just like our boy. No name, no friends, no relatives. Then he doesn't seem in the least odd to you? Is that it? Is that what you're telling me? So he's odd. I've never met a murderer that wasn't. Richie recalled the lean, hairless face, the expressionless eyes, the slender, youthful body that moved in strange, hesitant jerks, the halting voice. The clock bonged the quarter hour, 15 to 12. Max Kaplan wiped the perspiration from his forehead. And besides, Richie said, somewhat too loudly, it's plain ridiculous. He says, what? We're a dream he's having, right? Okay, then what about our parents? and their parents. Everybody who never heard of the kid. First thing I thought of, and you know his answer. Richie snorted. Well, think it over, for God's sake. He said every dream is a complete unit in itself. Haven't you ever had nightmares about people you've never seen before? Yes, I suppose, but all right, even though they were projections of your subconscious, or whatever the hell it's called, they were complete, weren't they? Going somewhere, doing something, all on their own? Richie was silent. Where were they going? What were they doing? See, the kid says every dream, even ours, builds its own whole world, complete, with a past and, as long as you stay asleep, a future. Nonsense! What about us, when we sleep and dream? Or is the period when we're unconscious the time he's up and around? And keep in mind that everybody doesn't sleep at the same time. You're missing the point, Hank. I said it was complete, didn't I? And isn't sleeping part of the pattern? Have another drink, Max, you're slipping. What will you wake up to? My home. You would not understand. Then what? Then I sleep again and dream another world. Why did you kill George Sanderson? It is my eternal destiny to kill and suffer punishment. Why? Why? In my world I committed a crime. It is the punishment of my world, its destiny. Then try this one on for size, Richie said. That kid's frozen stiff with fear. Since he's going to have to wake up no matter what, then why not sit back and enjoy it? Kaplan's eyes widened. Hank, how soundly do you sleep? What's that got to do with it? I mean, do you ever dream? Of course. Ever get hold of a particularly vivid one? Falling down stairs like, being tortured, anything like that? Richie pulled at his drink. Sure you have. Kaplan gazed steadily at the clock. Almost midnight. Then try to remember, in that kind of dream, isn't it true that the pleasure or pain you feel is almost as real as if you were actually experiencing it? I remember once I had a nightmare about my old man. He caught me in the basement with a cigarette. I was 8 or 9, I guess. He took down my pants and started after me with his belt. Hank, that hurt. Bad. It really hurt. So what's the point? In my dream, I tried to get away from my old man. He chased me all over the basement. Well, it's the same with the kid, except his dream is 100 times more vivid. That's all. He knows he'll feel that electric chair, feel the jolts frying into him, feel the death boiling up in his throat, just as much as if he were honest to God sitting there. Kaplan stopped talking. The two men sat quietly, watching the clock's visible progress. Then Richie leapt up and stalked over to the bar again. Doggone it, Max, he called. You're getting me fidgety now. Don't kid me, Kaplan said. You've been fidgety on your own for quite a while. I don't know how you ever made the grade as a criminal lawyer. You don't know the first thing about lying. Richie didn't answer. He poured the drink slowly. Look at you and Ruth, screaming at each other. And then there was the other tip-off. The way you defended the kid. Brilliant, masterful. You'd never have done that for a common, open and shut little killer. Max, Richie said, you're nuts. Tell you what, at exactly 12:01, I'm going to take you out for the biggest, juiciest, rarest steak you have ever seen. On me. Then we'll get loaded and fall all over ourselves laughing. Richie fought away the sudden picture of steak, rare steak, with the blood spurting out, sizzling on an electric stove. The clock began to strike. Henry Ritchie and Max Kaplan stood very still. He uncoiled. The dry pop of hardened joints jabbed wakefulness into him, until finally the 20-foot-long shell lay straight upon the streaming rocks. He opened his eyes, all of them, one by one. Across the bubbling pools, far away, past the white stone geysers, he could see them coming. Many of them, swiftly. Giant, slithering things with many arms and many legs. He tried to move, but the rock grew over him, and he could not move. By looking around, he could see the cliff's edge, and he remembered the 1,000 bottomless pits below. Gradually, the rest formed, and he remembered all. He turned to the largest creature. "Did you tell them?" He knew it would be a horrible punishment, worse than the last. The burning, far worse. Fingers began to unhinge the thick shell, peel it away from him, leaving the viscous white tenderness bare to the heat and pain. "Tell them! Make them understand this is only a dream I'm having." They took the prisoner to the precipice, lingered a moment to give him a view of the dizziness and sucking things far below. Then, nervous hands pressed him forward into space. He did not wake for a long time.
The Rocking Horse Winner by D.H. Lawrence. There was a woman who was beautiful, who started with all the advantages, yet she had no luck. She married for love, and the love turned to dust. She had bonny children, yet she felt they had been thrust upon her, and she could not love them. They looked at her coldly as if they were finding fault with her, and hurriedly she felt she must cover up some fault in herself. Yet what it was that she must cover up she never knew. Nevertheless, when her children were present, she always felt the center of her heart go hard. This troubled her, and in her manner she was all the more gentle and anxious for her children, as if she loved them very much. Only she herself knew that at the center of her heart was a hard little place that could not feel love. No, not for anybody. Everybody else said of her, "She is such a good mother, she adores her children." Only she herself and her children themselves knew it was not so. They read it in each other's eyes. There were a boy and 2 little girls. They lived in a pleasant house with a garden, and they had discreet servants and felt themselves superior to anyone in the neighborhood. Although they lived in style, they felt always an anxiety in the house. There was never enough money. The mother had a small income, and the father had a small income, but not nearly enough for the social position which they had to keep up. The father went into town to some office, but though he had good prospects, these prospects never materialized. There was always the grinding sense of the shortage of money, though the style was always kept up. At last the mother said, "I will see if I can't make something." But she did not know where to begin. She racked her brains and tried this thing and the other, but could not find anything successful. The failure made deep lines come into her face. Her children were growing up. They would have to go to school. There must be more money. There must be more money. The father, who was always very handsome and expensive in his tastes, seemed as if he never would be able to do anything worth doing, and the mother, who had a great belief in herself, did not succeed any better, and her tastes were just as expensive. And so the house came to be haunted by the unspoken phrase, "There must be more money. There must be more money." The children could hear it all the time, though nobody said it aloud. They heard it at Christmas, when the expensive and splendid toys filled the nursery. Behind the shining modern rocking horse, behind the smart doll's house, a voice would start whispering, "There must be more money. There must be more money." And the children would stop playing to listen for a moment. They would look into each other's eyes to see if they had all heard. And each one saw in the eyes of the other 2 that they too had heard, "There must be more money. There must be more money." It came whispering from the springs of the still swaying rocking horse, and even the horse, bending his wooden, champing head, heard it. The big doll, sitting so pink and smirking in her new pram, could hear it quite plainly, and seemed to be smirking all the more self-consciously because of it. The foolish puppy, too, that took the place of the teddy bear, He was looking so extraordinarily foolish, for no other reason but that he heard the secret whisper all over the house. There must be more money. Yet nobody ever said it aloud. The whisper was everywhere, and therefore no one spoke it. Just as no one ever says, we are breathing, in spite of the fact that breath is coming and going all the time.
Mother,
said the boy Paul one day,
why don't we keep a car of our own? Why do we always use Uncle's or else a taxi?
Because we're the poor members of the family, said the mother.
But why are we, Mother?
Well, I suppose, she said slowly and bitterly, it's because your father has no luck. The boy was silent for some time.
Is luck money, Mother?
He asked rather timidly.
No, Paul, not quite.
It's what causes you to have money.
Oh,
said Paul vaguely.
I thought when Uncle Oscar said filthy lucre, it meant money.
Filthy lucre does mean money, said the mother, but it's lucre, not luck.
Oh, said the boy. Then what is luck, Mother?
It's what causes you to have money. If you're lucky, you have money. That's why it's better to be born lucky than rich. If you're rich, you may lose your money. But if you're lucky, you will always get more money.
Oh, well, you? And is Father not lucky?
Very unlucky, I should say, she said bitterly. The boy watched her with unsure eyes.
Why?
He asked. I don't know. Nobody ever knows why one person is lucky and another unlucky.
Don't they? Nobody at all? Does nobody know?
Perhaps God, but he never tells.
He ought to, then. And aren't you lucky either, Mother?
I can't be if I married an unlucky husband.
But by yourself, aren't you?
I used to think I was before I was married. Now I think I am very unlucky indeed.
Why?
Well, never mind. Perhaps I'm not really, she said. The child looked at her to see if she meant it, but he saw by the lines of her mouth that she was only trying to hide something from him.
Well, anyhow, he said stoutly, I'm a lucky person.
Why? Said his mother with a sudden laugh. He stared at her. He didn't even know why he had said it.
God told me,
he asserted, brazening it out.
I hope he did, dear,
she said again with a laugh, but rather bitter.
He did, Mother.
Excellent, said the mother, using one of her husband's exclamations. The boy saw she did not believe him, or rather that she paid no attention to his assertion. This angered him somewhat, and made him want to compel her attention. He went off by himself vaguely, in a childish way, seeking for the clue to luck. Absorbed, taking no heed of other people, he went about with a sort of stealth, seeking inwardly for luck. He wanted luck. He wanted it. He wanted it. When the two girls were playing dolls in the nursery, he would sit on the big rocking horse, charging madly into space, with a frenzy that made the little girls peer at him uneasily. Wildly the horse careered. The waving, dark hair of the boy tossed. His eyes had a strange glare in them. The little girls dared not speak to him. When he had ridden to the end of his mad little journey, he climbed down and stood in front of his rocking horse, staring fixedly into its lowered face. Its red mouth was slightly open. Its big eye was wide and glassy and bright.
Now,
he would silently command the snorting steed.
Now take me to where there is luck. Now take me.
And he would slash the horse on the neck with the little whip he had asked Uncle Oscar for. He knew the horse could take him to where there was luck, if only he forced it. So he would mount again and start on his furious ride, hoping at last to get there. He knew he could get there.
You'll break your horse, Paul, said the nurse.
He's always riding like that. I wish he'd leave off,
said his elder sister Joan. But he only glared down on them in silence. Nurse gave him up. She could make nothing of him, anyhow. He was growing beyond her. One day his mother and his Uncle Oscar came in when he was on one of his furious rides. He did not speak to them. "Hello, you young jockey, riding a winner?" said his uncle.
"Aren't you growing too big for a rocking horse? You're not a very little boy any longer, you know," said his mother. But Paul only gave a blue glare from his big, rather close-set eyes. He would speak to nobody when he was in full tilt. His mother watched him with an anxious expression on her face. At last he suddenly stopped forcing his horse into the mechanical gallop and slid down. "Well, I got there," he announced fiercely, his blue eyes still flaring, his sturdy long legs straddling apart. Where did you get to? Asked his mother. Where I wanted to go to, he flared back at her.
That's right, son, said Uncle Oscar. Don't you stop till you get there. What's the horse's name?
He doesn't have a name, said the boy.
Gets on without all right? Asked the uncle.
Well, he has different names. He was called Sansovino last week.
Sansovino, eh? Won the Ascot. How did you know his name?
He always talks about horse races with Bassett,
said Joan. The uncle was delighted to find that his small nephew was posted with all the racing news. Bassett, the young gardener who had been wounded in the left foot in the war and had got his present job through Oscar Cresswell, whose Batman he had been, was a perfect blade of the turf. He lived in the racing events, and the small boy lived with him. Oscar Cresswell got it all from Bassett. Master Pole comes and asks me, so I can't do more than tell him, sir, said Bassett, his face terribly serious, as if he were speaking of religious matters.
And does he ever put anything on a horse he fancies?
Well, I don't want to give him away. He's a young sport, a fine sport, sir. Would you mind asking him himself? He sort of takes a pleasure in it, and perhaps he'd feel I was giving him away, sir, if you don't mind. Bassett was serious as a church. The uncle went back to the nephew and took him off for a ride in the car.
Say, Paul, old man, do you ever put anything on a horse?
The uncle asked. The boy watched the handsome man closely. Why, do you think I oughtn't to? He parried.
Not a bit of it. I thought perhaps you might give me a tip for the Lincoln.
The car sped on into the country, going down to Uncle Oscar's place in Hampshire.
Honor bright?
Said the nephew.
Honor bright, son, said the uncle.
Well then, Daffodil.
Daffodil? I doubt it, sonny. What about Mirza?
I only know the winner, said the boy. That's Daffodil.
Daffodil, eh?
There was a pause. Daffodil was an obscure horse, comparatively.
Uncle.
Yes, son?
You won't let it go any further, will you? I promised Bassett.
Bassett be damned, old man. What's he got to do with it?
We're partners. We've been partners from the first. Uncle, he lent me my first 5 shillings, which I lost. I promised him honor bright. It was only between me and him, only you gave me the 10-shilling note I started winning with, so I thought you were lucky. You won't let it go any further, will you?
The boy gazed at his uncle from those big, hot blue eyes, set rather close together. The uncle stirred and laughed uneasily.
Right you are, son. I'll keep your tip private. Daffodil, eh? How much are you putting on him?
All except 20 pounds, said the boy. I keep that in reserve.
The uncle thought it was a good joke.
You keep 20 pounds in reserve, do you, young romancer? What are you betting, then?
I'm betting 300, said the boy gravely. But it's between you and me, Uncle Oscar. Honor bright?
The uncle burst into a roar of laughter.
It's between you and me, all right, you young Nat Gould, he said, laughing. But where's your 300?
Bassett keeps it for me. We're partners.
You are you? And what is Bassett putting on Daffodil?
He won't go quite as high as I do, I expect. Perhaps he'll go 150.
What, pennies?
Laughed the uncle.
Pounds,
said the child with a surprised look at his uncle.
Bassett keeps a bigger reserve than I do.
Between wonder and amusement, Uncle Oscar was silent. He pursued the matter no further, but he determined to take his nephew with him to the Lincoln races.
Now, son, he said, I'm putting 20 on Mirza, and I'll put 5 for you on any horse you fancy. What's your pick?
Daffodil, Uncle.
No, not the 5 on Daffodil.
I should if it was my own 5, said the child.
Good, right you are. A 5 for me and a 5 for you on Daffodil.
The child had never been to a race meeting before, and his eyes were blue fire. He pursed his mouth tight and watched. A Frenchman just in front had put his money on Lancelot. Wild with excitement, he flayed his arms up and down, yelling, "Lancelot! Lancelot!" in his French accent. Daffodil came in first, Lancelot second, Mirza third. The child, flushed and with eyes blazing, was curiously serene. His uncle brought him 5 5-pound notes, 4 to 1.
What am I to do with these? He cried, waving them before the boy's eyes.
I suppose we'll talk to Bassett, said the boy. I expect I have 1,500 now, and 20 in reserve, and this 20.
His uncle studied him for some moments.
Look here, son, he said. You're not serious about Bassett and that 1,500, are you?
Yes, I am. But it's between you and me, Uncle. Honor bright.
Honor bright, all right, son, but I must talk to Bassett.
If you'd like to be a partner, Uncle, with Bassett and me, we could all be partners. Only you'd have to promise, honor bright, Uncle, not to let it go beyond us three. Bassett and I are lucky, and you must be lucky, because it was your 10 shillings I started with. Uncle Oscar took both Bassett and Paul into Richmond Park for an afternoon, and there they talked. "It's like this, you see, sir," Bassett said. "Master Paul would get me talking about racing events, spinning yards, you know, sir. And he was always keen on knowing if I'd made or if I'd lost. It's about a year since now that I put 5 shillings on Blush of Dawa for him, and we lost. Then the luck turned with that 10 shillings he had from you, and we put it on Singhalese. And since that time, it's been pretty steady, all things considering. What do you say, Master Paul?" "We're all right when we're sure," said Paul. "It's when we're not quite sure that we go down." "Oh, but we're careful then," said Bassett.
"But what are you sure?" smiled Uncle Oscar.
"It's Master Paul, sir," said Bassett in a secret religious voice. "It's as if he had it from heaven, like Daffodil now for the Lincoln. That was as sure as eggs."
"Did you put anything on Daffodil?"
asked Oscar Cresswell. "Yes, sir. I made my bit."
"And my nephew?"
Bassett was obstinately silent, looking at Paul. "I made 1,200, didn't I, Bassett? I told Uncle I was putting 300 on Daffodil." "That's right," said Bassett, nodding.
"But where's the money?"
asked the uncle. "I keep it safe locked up, sir. Master Paul, he can have it any minute he likes to ask for it."
"What, 1,500 pounds?"
"And 20. And 40, that is, with the 20 he made on the course."
"It's amazing," said the uncle.
"If Master Paul offers you to be partners, sir, I would if I were you. If you'll excuse me," said Bassett. Oscar Cresswell thought about it.
"I'll see the money," he said.
They drove home again, and sure enough, Bassett came round to the garden house with 1,500 pounds in notes. The 20 pounds reserve was left with Joe Glee in the turf commission deposit.
"You see, it's all right, Uncle, when I'm sure. Then we go strong for all we're worth, don't we, Bassett?" "We do that, Master Paul."
"And when are you sure?" said the uncle, laughing.
"Oh, well, sometimes I'm absolutely sure, like about Daffodil," said the boy. "And sometimes I have an idea, and sometimes I haven't even an idea, do I, Bassett? Then we're careful, because we mostly go down."
"You do you? And when you're sure, like about Daffodil, what makes you sure, sonny?"
"Oh, well, I don't know," said the boy uneasily. "I'm sure you know, Uncle, that's all." "It's as if he had it from heaven, sir," Bassett reiterated.
"I should say so,"
said the uncle. But he became a partner, and when the ledger was coming on, Paul was sure about Lively Spark, which was a quite inconsiderable horse. The boy insisted on putting 1,000 on the horse. Bassett went for 500, and Oscar Cresswell 200. Lively Spark came in first, and the betting had been 10-1 against him. Paul had made 10,000.
"You see," he said, "I was absolutely sure of him."
Even Oscar Cresswell had cleared 2,000.
Look here, son," he said. "This sort of thing makes me nervous."
"It needn't, Uncle. Perhaps I shan't be sure again for a long time."
"But what are you going to do with your money?"
asked the uncle.
"Of course," said the boy, "I started it for Mother. She said she had no luck because Father is unlucky. So I thought if I was lucky, it might stop whispering."
"What might stop whispering?"
"Our house. I hate our house for whispering."
"What does it whisper?"
Why, the boy fidgeted. "Why, I don't know. But it's always short of money, you know, Uncle?"
"I know it, son, I know it."
"You know people send Mother writs, don't you, Uncle?"
"I'm afraid I do," said the uncle.
"And then the house whispers like people laughing at you behind your back. It's awful, that is. I thought if I was lucky—"
"You might stop it,"
added the uncle. The boy watched him with big blue eyes that had an uncanny cold fire in them, and he said never a word.
"Well then," said the uncle, "what are we doing?"
"I shouldn't like Mother to know I was lucky," said the boy.
"Why not, son?"
"She'd stop me."
"I don't think she would."
"Oh?" And the boy writhed in an odd way. "I don't want her to know, Uncle."
All right, son, we'll manage it without her knowing. They managed it very easily. Paul, at the other's suggestion, handed over £5,000 to his uncle, who deposited it with a family lawyer who was then to inform Paul's mother that a relative had put £5,000 into his hands, which sum was to be paid out £1,000 at a time on the mother's birthday for the next 5 years. So she'll have a birthday present of £1,000 for 5 successive years, said Uncle Oscar. I hope it won't make it all the harder for her later. Paul's mother had her birthday in November. The house had been whispering worse than ever lately, and even in spite of his luck, Paul could not bear up against it. He was very anxious to see the effect of the birthday letter telling his mother about the £1,000. When there were no visitors, Paul now took his meals with his parents, as he was beyond the nursery control. His mother went into town nearly every day. She had discovered that she had an odd knack of sketching furs and dress materials, so she worked secretly in the studio of a friend who was the chief artist for the leading drapers. She drew the figures of ladies in furs and ladies in silk and sequins for the newspaper advertisements. This young woman artist earned several £1,000s a year, but Paul's mother only made several hundreds, and she was again dissatisfied. She so wanted to be first in something, and she did not succeed even in making sketches for drapery advertisements. She was down to breakfast on the morning of her birthday. Paul watched her face as she read her letters. He knew the lawyer's letter. As his mother read it, her face hardened and became more expressionless. Then a cold, determined look came on her mouth. She hid the letter under the pile of others and said not a word about it. "Didn't you have anything nice in the post for your birthday, Mother?" said Paul. "Quite moderately nice," she said, her voice cold and distant. She went away to town without saying more. But in the afternoon, Uncle Oscar appeared. He said Paul's mother had had a long interview with the lawyer, asking if the whole $5,000 could not be advanced at once, as she was in debt. "What do you think, Uncle?" said the boy. "I leave it to you, son." "Oh, let her have it then. We can get some more with the other," said the boy. "A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, laddie," said Uncle Oscar. "But I'm sure to know for the Grand National, or the Lincoln, or else the Derby. I'm sure to know for one of them," said Paul. So Uncle Oscar signed the agreement, and Paul's mother touched the whole 5,000. Then something very curious happened. The voices in the house suddenly went mad, like a chorus of frogs on a spring evening. There were certain new furnishings, and Paul had a tutor. He was really going to Eton, his father's school, in the following autumn. There were flowers in the winter and a blossoming of the luxury Paul's mother had been used to. And yet the voices in the house, behind the sprays of mimosa and almond blossom, and from under the piles of iridescent cushions, simply trilled and screamed in a sort of ecstasy. "There must be more money! Oh, there must be more money! Oh, now! There must be more money! More than ever! More than ever!" It frightened Paul terribly. He studied away at his Latin and Greek with his tutors, but his intense hours were spent with Bassett. The Grand National had gone by. He had not known, and had lost £100. Summer was at hand. He was in agony for the Lincoln. But even for the Lincoln he didn't know, and he lost £50. He became wild-eyed and strange, as if something were going to explode in him. "Let it alone, son. Don't you bother about it," urged Uncle Oscar. But it was as if the boy couldn't really hear what his uncle was saying. "I've got to know for the Derby! I've got to know for the Derby!" the child reiterated, his big blue eyes blazing with a sort of madness. His mother noticed how overwrought he was. "You'd better go to the seaside. Wouldn't you like to go now to the seaside instead of waiting? I think you'd better," she said, looking down at him anxiously, her heart curiously heavy because of him. But the child lifted his uncanny blue eyes. "I couldn't possibly go before the Derby, Mother," he said. "I couldn't possibly." "Why not?" she said, her voice becoming heavy when she was opposed. "Why not? You can still go from the seaside to see the Derby with your Uncle Oscar, if that's what you wish. No need for you to wait here. Besides, I think you care too much about these races. It's a bad sign. My family has been a gambling family, and you won't know till you grow up how much damage it has done. But it has done damage. I shall have to send Bassett away, and ask Uncle Oscar not to talk racing to you. unless you promise to be reasonable about it. Go away to the seaside and forget it. You're all nerves." "I'll do what you like, Mother, so long as you don't send me away till after the Derby," the boy said. "Send you away from where? Just from this house?" "Yes," he said, gazing at her. "Why, you curious child, what makes you care about this house so much suddenly? I never knew you loved it." He gazed at her without speaking. He had a secret within a secret. Something he had not divulged even to Bassett or to his Uncle Oscar. But his mother, after standing undecided and a little bit sullen for some moments, said, "Very well, then. Don't go to the seaside till after the Derby if you don't wish it. But promise me you won't let your nerves go to pieces. Promise you won't think so much about horse racing and events, as you call them." "Oh, no," said the boy casually. "I won't think much about them, Mother. You needn't worry. I wouldn't worry, Mother, if I were you." "If you were me and I were you," said his mother, "I wonder what we should do." "But you know you needn't worry, Mother, don't you?" the boy repeated. "I should be awfully glad to know it," she said wearily. "Oh, well, you can, you know. I mean, you ought to know you needn't worry," he insisted. "Ought I? Then I'll see about it," she said. Paul's secret of secrets was his wooden horse, that which had no name. Since he was emancipated from a nursery and a nursery governess, he had had his rocking horse removed to his own bedroom at the top of the house. "Surely you're too big for a rocking horse," his mother had remonstrated. "Well, you see, Mother, till I can have a real horse, I like to have some sort of animal about," had been his quaint answer. "Do you feel he keeps you company?" she laughed. "Oh, yes, he's very good. He always keeps me company when I'm there," said Paul. So the horse, rather shabby, stood in an arrested prance in the boy's bedroom. The Derby was drawing near, and the boy grew more and more tense. He hardly heard what was spoken to him. He was very frail, and his eyes were really uncanny. His mother had sudden, strange seizures of uneasiness about him. Sometimes for half an hour she would feel a sudden anxiety about him that was almost anguish. She wanted to rush to him at once and know he was safe. 2 nights before the Derby, she was at a big party in town when one of her rushes of anxiety about her boy, her firstborn, gripped her heart till she could hardly speak. She fought with the feeling, might and main, for she believed in common sense. But it was too strong. She had to leave the dance and go downstairs to telephone to the country. The children's nursery governess was terribly surprised and startled at being rung up in the night. "Are the children all right, Miss Wilmot?" "Oh, yes, they're quite all right." "Master Paul, is he all right?" "He went to bed as right as a trivet. Shall I run up and look at him?" "No," said Paul's mother reluctantly. "No, don't trouble. It's all right. Don't sit up. We shall be home fairly soon." She did not want her son's privacy intruded upon. "Very good," said the governess. It was about 1 o'clock when Paul's mother and father drove up to their house. All was still. Paul's mother went to her room and slipped off her white fur cloak. She had told her maid not to wait up for her. She heard her husband downstairs mixing a whiskey and soda, and then because of the strange anxiety at her heart she stole upstairs to her son's room. Noiselessly she went along the upper corridor. Was there a faint noise? What was it? She stood with arrested muscles outside his door, listening. There was a strange, heavy, and yet not loud noise. Her heart stood still. It was a soundless noise, yet rushing and powerful, something huge, in violent, hushed motion. What was it? What in God's name was it? She ought to know. She felt that she knew the noise. She knew what it was. Yet she could not place it. She couldn't say what it was, and on it went like a madness. Softly, frozen with anxiety and fear, she turned at the door handle. The room was dark. Yet in the space near the window she heard and saw something plunging to and fro. She gazed in fear and amazement. Then suddenly she switched on the light and saw her son, in his green pajamas, madly surging on his rocking horse. The blazing of light suddenly lit him up as he urged the wooden horse, and lit her up as she stood, blonde in her dress of pale green and crystal, in the doorway. "Paul!" she cried. "Whatever are you doing?" "It's Malabar!" he screamed in a powerful, strange voice. "It's Malabar!" His eyes blazed at her for one strange and senseless second as he ceased urging his wooden horse. Then he fell with a crash to the ground, and she, all her tormented motherhood flooding upon her, rushed to gather him up. But he was unconscious, and unconscious he remained with some brain fever. He talked and tossed, and his mother sat stonily by his side. "Malamar! It's Malamar! Bassett! Bassett! I know! It's Malamar!" So the child cried, trying to get up and urge the rocking horse that gave him his inspiration. "What does he mean by Malabar?" asked the heart-frozen mother. "I don't know," said the father stonily. "What does he mean by Malabar?" she asked her brother Oscar. "It's one of the horses running for the Derby," was the answer. And in spite of himself, Oscar Cresswell spoke to Bassett, and himself put 1,000 on Malabar at 14-1. The third day of the illness was critical. They were watching for a change. The boy, with his rather long curly hair, was tossing ceaselessly on the pillow. He neither slept nor regained consciousness, and his eyes were like blue stones. His mother sat feeling her heart had gone, turned actually into a stone. In the evening, Oscar Cresswell did not come, but Bassett sent a message saying, could he come up for one moment, just one moment? Paul's mother was very angry at the intrusion, but on second thoughts, she agreed. The boy was the same. Perhaps Bassett might bring him to consciousness. The gardener, a shortish fellow with a little brown mustache and sharp little brown eyes, tiptoed into the room, touched his imaginary cap to Paul's mother, and stole to the bedside, staring with glittering smallish eyes at the tossing, dying child. "Master," he whispered. "Master Paul, Malabar came in first all right, a clean win. I did as you told me. You've made over 70,000 pounds, you have. You've got over 80,000. Malabar came in all right, Master Paul." "Malabar! Malabar! Did I say Malabar, Mother? Did I say Malabar? Do you think I'm lucky, Mother? I knew Malabar, didn't I? Over 80,000 pounds. I call that lucky, don't you, Mother? Over 80,000 pounds. I knew. Didn't I know I knew? Malabar came in all right. If I ride my horse till I'm sure, then I tell you, Bassett, you can go as high as you like. Did you go for all you were worth, Bassett?" "I went 1,000 on it, Master Paul." "I never told you, Mother, that if I can ride my horse and get there, then I'm absolutely sure. Oh, absolutely. Mother, did I ever tell you I am lucky?" "No, you never did," said the mother. But the boy died in the night. And even as he lay dead, his mother heard her brother's voice saying to her, "My God, Hester, you're 80-odd thousand to the good, and a poor devil of a son to the bad. But poor devil, he's best gone out of a life where he rides his rocking horse to find a winner."
The Other Side of the Hedge by E.M. Forster. My pedometer told me that I was 25, and, though it is a shocking thing to stop walking, I was so tired that I sat down on a milestone to rest. People outstripped me, jeering as they did so, but I was too apathetic to feel resentful. And even when Miss Eliza Dimbleby, the great educationist, swept past exhorting me to persevere, I only smiled and raised my hat. At first I thought I was going to be like my brother, whom I had had to leave by the roadside a year or two round the corner. He had wasted his breath on singing, and his strength on helping others, but I had travelled more wisely, and now it was only the monotony of the highway that oppressed me, dust underfoot and brown crackling hedges on either side ever since I could remember. And I had already dropped several things. Indeed, the road behind was strewn with the things we all had dropped, and the white dust was settling down on them, so that already they looked no better than stones. My muscles were so weary that I could not even bear the weight of those things I still carried. I slid off the milestone into the road, and lay there prostrate, with my face to the great parched hedge, praying that I might give up. A little puff of air revived me. It seemed to come from the hedge, and when I opened my eyes, there was a glint of light through the tangle of boughs and dead leaves. The hedge could not be as thick as usual. In my weak, morbid state, I longed to force my way in and see what was on the other side. No one was in sight, or I should not have dared to try. For we of the road do not admit in conversation that there is another side at all. I yielded to the temptation, saying to myself that I would come back in a minute. The thorns scratched my face, and I had to use my arms as a shield, depending on my feet alone to push me forward. Halfway through I would have gone back, for in the passage all the things I was carrying were scraped off me, and my clothes were torn. But I was so wedged that return was impossible, and I had to wriggle blindly forward, expecting every moment that my strength would fail me, and that I should perish in the undergrowth. Suddenly cold water closed round my head, and I seemed sinking down forever. I had fallen out of the edge into a deep pool. I rose to the surface at last, crying for help, and I heard someone on the opposite bank laugh and say, "Another!" And then I was twitched out and laid panting on the dry ground. Even when the water was out of my eyes, I was still dazed, for I had never been in so large a space, nor seen such grass and sunshine. The blue sky was no longer a strip, and beneath it the earth had risen grandly into hills, clean, bare buttresses, with beech trees in their folds, and meadows and clear pools at their feet. But the hills were not high, and there was in the landscape a sense of human occupation, so that one might have called it a park or garden, if the woods did not imply a certain triviality and constraint. As soon as I got my breath, I turned to my rescuer and said, "Where does this place lead to?" "Nowhere, thank the Lord," said he, and laughed. He was a man of 50 or 60, just the kind of age we mistrust on the road, but there was no anxiety in his manner, and his voice was that of a boy of 18. "But it must lead somewhere," I cried, too much surprised at his answer to thank him for saving my life. "He wants to know where it leads," he shouted to some men on the hillside, and they laughed back and waved their caps. I noticed then that the pool into which I had fallen was really a moat, which bent round to the left and to the right, and that the hedge followed it continually. The hedge was green on this side, its roots showed through the clear water, and fish swam about in them, and it was wreathed over with dog roses and traveller's joy. But it was a barrier, and in a moment I lost all pleasure in the grass, the sky, the trees, the happy men and women, and realized that the place was but a prison, for all its beauty and extent. We moved away from the boundary, and then followed a path almost parallel to it, across the meadows. I found it difficult walking, for I was always trying to outdistance my companion, and there was no advantage in doing this if the place led nowhere. I had never kept step with anyone since I left my brother. I amused him by stopping suddenly and saying disconsolately, "This is perfectly terrible. One cannot advance, one cannot progress. Now we of the road—" "Yes, I know. I was going to say we advance continually. I know. We are always learning, expanding, developing. Why, even in my short life I have seen a great deal of advance. The Transvaal War, the fiscal question, Christian Science, radium. Here, for example," I took out my pedometer, but it still marked 25, not a degree more. "Oh, it stopped. I meant to show you. It should have registered all the time I was walking with you, but it makes me only 25. "Many things don't work in here," he said. "One day a man brought in a Lee Metford, and that wouldn't work. The laws of science are universal in their application. It must be the water in the moat that has injured the machinery. In normal conditions everything works. Science and the spirit of emulation, those are the forces that have made us what we are." I had to break off and acknowledge the pleasant greetings of people whom we passed. Some of them were singing, some talking, some engaged in gardening, haymaking, or other rudimentary industries. They all seemed happy. and I might have been happy too, if I could have forgotten that the place led nowhere. I was startled by a young man who came sprinting across our path, took a little fence in fine style, and went tearing over a ploughed field till he plunged into a lake, across which he began to swim. Here was true energy, and I exclaimed, "A cross-country race! Where are the others?" "There are no others," my companion replied, and later on, when we passed some long grass from which came the voice of a girl singing exquisitely to herself, he said again, "There are no others." I was bewildered at the waste in production, and murmured to myself, "What does it all mean?" He said, "It means nothing but itself." And he repeated the words slowly, as if I were a child. "I understand," I said quietly, "but I do not agree. Every achievement is worthless unless it is a link in the chain of development, and I must not trespass on your kindness any longer. I must get back somehow to the road and have my pedometer mended." "First you must see the gates," he replied, "for we have gates, though we never use them." I yielded politely, and before long we reached the moat again, at a point where it was spanned by a bridge. Over the bridge was a big gate, as white as ivory, which was fitted into a gap in the boundary hedge. The gate opened outwards, and I exclaimed in amazement, for from it ran a road, just such a road as I had left, dusty underfoot, with brown crackling hedges on either side as far as the eye could reach. "That's my road," I cried. He shut the gate and said, "But not your part of the road. It is through this gate that humanity went out countless ages ago, when it was first seized with the desire to walk." I denied this, observing that the part of the road I myself had left was not more than 2 miles off. But with the obstinacy of his years he repeated, "It is the same road. This is the beginning, and though it seems to run straight away from us, it doubles so often that it is never far from our boundary, and sometimes touches it." He stooped down by the moat and traced on its moist margin an absurd figure like a maze. As we walked back through the meadows, I tried to convince him of his mistake. "The road sometimes doubles, to be sure, but that is part of our discipline. Who can doubt that its general tendency is onward? To what goal we know not. It may be to some mountain where we shall touch the sky. It may be over precipices into the sea. But that it goes forward, who can doubt that? It is the thought of that that makes us strive to excel, each in his own way, and gives us an impetus which is lacking with you. Now, that man who passed us, it's true that he ran well and jumped well and swam well, but we have men who can run better, and men who can jump better, and who can swim better. Specialization has produced results which would surprise you. Similarly, that girl—" Here I interrupted myself to exclaim, "Good gracious me, I could have sworn it was Miss Elizabeth Dimbleby over there, with her feet in the fountain." He believed it was. "Impossible. I left her on the road, and she is due to lecture this evening at Tunbridge Wells." "Why, her train leaves Cannon Street in—" "Of course, my watch has stopped like everything else. She is the last person to be here." People are always astonished at meeting each other. All kinds come through the hedge, and come at all times. When they are drawing ahead in the race, when they are lagging behind, when they are left for dead. I often stand near the boundary listening to the sounds of the road. You know what they are. And wonder if anyone will turn aside. It is my great happiness to help someone out of the moat, as I helped you, for our country fills up slowly, though it was meant for all mankind." "Mankind have other aims," I said gently, for I thought him well-meaning, "and I must join them." I bade him good evening, for the sun was declining, and I wished to be on the road by nightfall. To my alarm, he caught hold of me, crying, "You are not to go yet." I tried to shake him off, for we had no interests in common, and his civility was becoming irksome to me. But for all my struggles, the tiresome old man would not let go, and, as wrestling is not my speciality, I was obliged to follow him. It was true that I could have never found alone the place where I came in, and I hoped that, when I had seen the other sights about which he was worrying, he would take me back to it. But I was determined not to sleep in the country, for I mistrusted it, and the people too, for all their friendliness. Hungry though I was, I would not join them in their evening meals of milk and fruit, and when they gave me flowers, I flung them away as soon as I could do so unobserved. Already they were lying down for the night like cattle, some out on the bare hillside, others in groups under the beeches. In the light of an orange sunset I hurried on with my unwelcome guide, dead tired, faint for want of food, but murmuring indomitably, "Give me life with its struggles and victories, with its failures and hatreds, with its deep moral meaning and its unknown goal." At last we came to a place where the encircling moat was spanned by another bridge, and where another gate interrupted the line of the boundary hedge. It was different from the first gate, for it was half transparent like horn, and opened inwards. But through it, in the waning light, I saw again just such a road as I had left, monotonous, dusty, with brown crackling edges on either side, as far as the eye could reach. I was strangely disquieted at the sight, which seemed to deprive me of all self-control. A man was passing us, returning for the night to the hills, with a scythe over his shoulder and a can of some liquid in his hand. I forgot the destiny of our race. I forgot the road that lay before my eyes, and I sprang at him, wrenched the can out of his hand, and began to drink. It was nothing stronger than beer, but in my exhausted state it overcame me in a moment. As in a dream I saw the old man shut the gate, and heard him say, "This is where your road ends, and through this gate humanity, all that is left of it, will come in to us." Though my senses were sinking into oblivion, they seemed to expand ere they reached it. They perceived the magic song of nightingales, and the odour of invisible hay, and stars piercing the fading sky. The man whose beer I had stolen lowered me down gently to sleep off its effects, and, as he did so, I saw that he was my brother.